Hey y'all, it is Tony Vicenda from Plus One EXP, and we are live for another Prestige class. Today, I am joined by Chris Bissette. If you're not familiar with Plus One EXP, we're a funny little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope, our desire is really just to see small, independent tabletop role-playing games flourish, to find their audience, and to help different creators get word out about their project. Though I would say today's creator is somebody who does that an excellent job of that on their own, which is why we wanted to have them on and be able to learn from them. I'm glad we've got Gary in the chat who says he's ready to learn today also too. But you can find everything we do at Plus One EXP on social media, or at plusoneexp.com for all the games and other things that we make, as well as to connect out to all the different content that we have. But you didn't come here to hear me talk. You came here to hear from another designer and creator. And today we've got with us Chris Bissette, whose project D36 launches today. Chris, tell people a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and where they can find your stuff online.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Chris. Thanks for having me. People will know me from Loot the Room, my website, and a game I wrote last year called The Wretched, which is a solo survival horror game that you play with Jenga. And if you're on Twitter, I am very online, and you'll find me on Twitter at twitter.com/pangalactic.
And the link to his website and his Twitter handle are also right below him if you want those URLs later on in the show, or just don't want to have to jot them down right away. But I would highly encourage checking it out. Let's start by talking a little bit about The Wretched that you just mentioned. I would say at this point, The Wretched has become for a lot of people a solid template for how to build a solo RPG. It's something a lot of people have taken and hacked or done different things with. Some of our favorite solo projects this year on a Kickstarter for Zine Quest have been Wretched and Alone hacks or adaptations. Tell us a little bit more about Wretched and kind of where the idea for that came from and what the development process for it was like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird to me that so many people have taken this game and done things with it. It's great. Wretched I wrote at the beginning of the first set of lockdowns last year when I was going to work, and I was really feeling stressed about the whole situation. And I think I just kind of poured that out into a game. Initially, I'd told myself I wanted to write a game that felt to play the way a John Carpenter soundtrack feels to listen to. I don't know whether I actually managed that or not, but that was always the design goal. The result, I couldn't be happier with how it turned out and how it went.
That's awesome. Tell people a little bit about some of the themes that go into that. Like, give people the elevator pitch for the game.
So, elevator pitch for The Wretched is the credits roll on Alien. You are Ellen Ripley. You have blown the creature out of the airlock into space, but it has survived and latched onto the outside of your ship, and now it's trying to get back in. And you are desperately trying to either restart your engines or get help before the creature gets onto the ship and has its way with you. Yeah. The pitch is survive alone in space, but you won't survive. The game is set up so that you will absolutely die at the end of the game, and it's all about the story you tell and the process you go through to get to that point.
That's awesome. It's right here buried underneath all of my copy. I just got my copy in the mail the other day, but I also had a bunch of dice bags that came in at the exact same time. And so they are, let me see if I can, yeah, somebody who hasn't had it. This is The Wretched, right? This is not.
Oh, you've got the fancy Kickstarter edition.
Yeah, I got the fancy Kickstarter edition. And so I love it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it just got here the other day because in Philadelphia they decide, hey, like sometimes we'll take an extra month it'll get to Philly, but then we'll take an extra month to get it to your house. And so
it happens. So many people still waiting on their copies arriving, but they'll get there. They'll get there.
Yeah. And we got the other little mini zine that you had done with it also too. We're super excited to be able to kind of dive into that. If I'm going to get a solo RPG, I never want the digital version. I mean, I'll get the digital version also, but I want the physical piece to hold in my hands and kind of go through and look through. What has been one of the hacks that people have done of The Wretched that you have been the most excited to see what they've done with the system?
God, so many. I mean, the one that I have played the most and enjoyed the most is actually just a straight up wretched game. It hasn't really changed anything. And that's Before the Dawn, which is on Itch by Alex C. Is a folk horror version where you play a creature hunting people in the forest, and they're trying to do a ritual to kind of stop you. And it's all about embodying this weird eldritch horror thing, and it's just written really beautifully, and it's just a really fantastic game, and it blew me away the first time I read it that it had kind of built on the framework of my game and someone could do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. God, some of the stuff people do with the system, I don't know where they come up with it. We've had games where people, rather than pulling blocks from a Jenga tower, you are building the tower up from the beginning. There's a game called, I think it's The Death of Numismus, where you stack coins. And it's weird, people take the system in all sorts of different ways and do all sorts of different things with it. And somehow they all still feel like Wretched and Alone games. And I'm not sure how or why that happens, but it makes me happy every time I see it.
Um, let's talk a little bit about that, because I would love to hear just from another creator. Like, I'm the kind of person who, like, my first game is just going shipping out to people right now, but I always love the amount of jams and hacking and other things that we're seeing in the RPG, especially the indie RPG field right now, as just kind of the norm. Like, I created this thing, but I put it out into the world. If you want to do something with it, do it. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, obviously it's something that you've enjoyed the content people have created, but when you were approaching like the Wretched and Alone system, were you thinking, I want to make this so people can hack it?
I wasn't. I wrote the game just to write a game, and then Matt Sanders of Seal Library, who I've known for years and I've worked with off and on for years, when I was writing the Wretched, I showed him a draft of it, and he said to me, this system really fits a game that I've been wanting to write for years, which is his game, the Seal Library. Do you mind if I write my own version of this game? And I was like, yeah, why would I mind? Go for it. And then in the process of him writing the Sealed Library, he put together the Wretched SRD as a reference for himself while he was writing that game. And then we both looked at it and said, well, actually, like, if Matt wants to write a game, other people presumably might want to write a game. And so it was his idea to do the jam. If it wasn't for Matt, I don't think the Wretched would have been anywhere near as popular as it actually turned out to be, because he wrote the SRD for it. He told me we should host a jam for it, and it's all just kind of snowballed from there. But the second we did it and people latched onto it and started wanting to make games, I was just like, shit, yeah, this is a really good idea. I'm really happy we did it, and it's something I'm going to do with because I love doing game jams and taking part in them. And I think I'm going to probably do a jam for Dice Souls when that comes out as well, just because it's nice. I have this weird struggle where putting on a jam and saying, write a game based on my game feels very ego driven, and I don't like that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, please do something with this because it's cool and I want to see what you do with it.
Right.
So I just need to embrace the egotistical part of it and go for it, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the big things that you've done really well is position yourself in the community, and like this only comes through authentic. Like, anybody who's like, I'm thinking about how I want to position myself in the community to do X, well, then it's no longer. But like, you very naturally position yourself in a way that's supportive of others, that shares the work others are doing. It's about making your work available and not saying like, hey, you have to do something with my work, but like, this is for everyone. Like, take it if you want to, you know, like, and I that's one of the things that I love about you. And, you know, I said, and we were going to talk about it a little bit more in just a second, that I think that approach to collaboration is so essential. And even hearing like, it was Matt taking your game and saying, hey, can I do this? I want to create an SRD. And that willingness to say to somebody else, yeah, take this thing I've created and do more with it, so that other people can do more with it, is actually a huge type of yes that I think more creators need to say, and kind of see. And so, I think you've done just a fairly phenomenal job of being this kind of generous person in a way that doesn't require it to feel like ego ever, or clarify that it's not ego
Yeah,
and
I appreciate
innovation.
that. Thank you.
Actually, I was gonna ask this question, but Gary does want to know because he is not a designer. He wants to know what a game jam is. So, if everybody who out there who's watching who's not familiar with itch and jams and all the things that come out of that, tell people a little bit about what a game jam is.
Yeah, so I think the idea comes from computer games and video games initially, where people would sit down over a course of a few days or a week with a set of constraints or prompts or a theme and make a game. They would all groups of people make a game based on the same set of constraints or theme or whatever, and that's really picked up on in itch on the indie RPG scene, where people do jams that will last. They last a lot longer in role playing games generally, like for a month or so, and someone will say, "Hey, we're having a." The first game I wrote was for a game jam for Record Collection Jam, and the theme for that was write a game based on or inspired by an album that you love. Um, and so everyone goes away, picks something, writes a game based on it, and then there's like a community hub where you all post your games up for everyone to look at, and it's just a big creative community exercise. There's generally sometimes people offer prizes and judging, but generally that's not done, and it's just more like a celebration of games. So our jam was here's the Wretched and Alone systems reference document. Here's hundreds of free copies of the Wretched in the sealed library. Uh, Go away and write a game based on this. Interpret it as you will. Um, People do it with games like Troika, have an open license where you can write stuff for them. So people are constantly doing Troika jams, like there's Troika pamphlet adventures, and people did like Troika background jams and stuff. And it's just an excuse to make something at the same time as everybody else is making something similar, and just have fun with it, I think is the important thing.
Yeah. No, I always sign up for jams and then I'm like, I never, never end up doing it. But I love
There
seeing what
was a
everybody else
jam
comes up
for
with.
that recently.
Right.
A game I put out very recently, well, a few months ago, called Whale Song. I started writing for the Ad Astra Jam, Kiena hosted kind of a year and a half ago, and I started writing it for that and then never finished it. And then maybe 3 or 4 months ago, someone started another jam that was, "Here is a game jam for games that you started for other game jams and didn't finish." And I thought, "Well, this is my excuse to finish writing Whale Song finally." Yeah, I think I've signed up for about 70 or 80 jams over the past year, and I've maybe submitted things to 6 of them.
Yeah. The most recent one that I have signed up for, but not actually done anything other than write down like 2 or 3 sentences worth of ideas, is the Sledgehammer jam.
Oh,
Is the one that
Sledgehammer, yes. That game is so good, and I've started so many little pamphlet things for it and not finished them.
yeah.
But yeah,
And I love it because Sledgehammer is also a riff on like the NOSR, like, and like there's just, we're seeing like the iterative process. But again, one of the things I love is just the concept of like, yeah, no one owns this, because even like Nate's game was just like, I'm gonna make the sloppiest one-page hack
yeah,
of black hack that I can, which is a hack of itself, and so it's a hack of a hack of a hack done in a sloppy manner that then it's like, but
yeah.
we love this format, and now I want to make something else, and then other people jumping in on like of that. And yeah, like I said, and then eventually you see some of those things grow into entirely new systems as they come back around also too. So I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, Adam's excited about Sledgehammer also too. And so
It's one of those things where, like, art in general is always a conversation. Every piece of art you write is in conversation with all the rest of the art around it, whether that's music or stories or poetry or games. And I think jams just really highlight the conversation part of making art, I think.
yeah. No, and I love, like, we recently had to have a kind of tense conversation with somebody in the video game community, because basically, like, we have an RPG coming out that's set in a trash kingdom, and they made a video game, or in the middle of making a video game that has a similar like setting, and they were like, this is too close to our game. And we're like, I mean, for one thing, you can't own what you're trying to own, and for another
Nobody
thing,
owns trash, come on.
like it's literally what trash is. No, and so it's been a I mean, it's an intense conversation, but somebody who's like close to one of our designers and was like, you must have taken this idea from me. And it's like, and what if we did? Like, they're not the same types of games at all. Like, But even if they were, like Neon Lords is of the Toxic Wasteland is way more of an influence on our RPG, even though the system's entirely different and the mechanics are different and the settings different than your game that I was unaware of and only one person on our dev team was and haven't thought about it in like a year and a half, right? And
I
so
think people get very precious about ideas, but
yeah,
ideas aren't the hard part. Ideas are the easy part.
right.
It's
And
it's turning the ideas into
it's way easier
something.
to come together and say, look at the great things we're all making in this vein for me, than to be like,
Yeah.
you own this piece and I own that piece, and don't come towards my part of this. It's like, no, take my part of this, like go do great things with it. I can't wait. Like the Oracle system that we've created, the core mechanic component for Repugnant, the RPG we have coming out next week. I am just like crazy excited about the way it's formed, and can't wait to just launch it into the world and see like what other creators do with it. And so,
Awesome.
but let's talk a little bit more about specifically D36. So you've got this Kickstarter up right now. I'm gonna pop that up on the screen so that people can see that. Well, that's my Facebook page, not D36. There we go.
That's not what you want to show off.
That's me on Facebook. Go follow me if you want to. D36. It's your current project, and you have been hyping this for a while now. I know you had to wait in order to hit launch earlier today.
Yeah.
I'm going to refresh the page to make sure we get the actual up-to-date total. So you are basically 80% to your goal right now, almost to the dollar or pound. You've got a $5,510 goal, which is you're at $4,401, which I'm sure you're looking at it in a different currency. Let's see. Make it
sounds more impressive in dollars.
Which is high for Kickstarter, but it's a collaborative zine. So tell us a little bit about D36, what it is, what people can expect from it.
Yeah, so D36 is hopefully going to be a quarterly zine of very weird RPG content that doesn't really comfortably sit anywhere else. The initial goal, the £4,000 that we're aiming for, is to do issue 1, and then the stretch goals for issues 2, 3, and 4. It's inspired by things like Penicillin by Micah Anderson, and like Codex that the Gauntlet put out, and things like McSweeney's Quarterly Concern, which is a big influence on it. Because that's a fiction quarterly zine thing that is always presented in a different format, and that's something that's really inspiring to me. But this basically, it was an excuse for me to reach out to some of my friends and people whose work I really admire and say, here's a prompt and here's some money. Will you please write something for me? And it's paid off. Well, it hasn't paid off yet because it hasn't funded, but from a creative standpoint, it's paid off really well because the work I got back is just incredible and varied, and none of it is something that I could have written myself. And it's really like an honor to be able to publish it and to be able to do layout for these things and like put this work into people's hands that wouldn't otherwise have existed without this zine. Yeah, it's really cool, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. And like I said, you just hit launch like a couple of hours ago on this, so like you're cruising through. You're going to be unlocking stretch goals for sure. Hopefully, getting all the way through that 12,000 pound level that you're looking at. But one of the things that I said, this is one of my 10 most anticipated projects of Zine Quest 3, which really just means what I'm excited about. So anybody who didn't make the list, it doesn't mean you don't have a great project. It just means like this is one I was looking forward to. And it's not just because I love the games you make and knew about your ability to deliver and like the work that you have done. It was specifically because of some of the conversations that I've watched you kind of manage and have been excited to see happening on Twitter as you were kind of getting ready for this. And that was about, in a keyword that you used just a little while ago, paying people money to collaborate on your project. Yep. So tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts on that, because I do think how we approach collaboration is an incredibly important thing. We just talked about jams, which is a certain type of collaboration, but when you're inviting people in to work on a project, specifically paying them in advance to create something is not a tack that currently a lot of people are taking with their collaborations.
No, I've done a little bit of freelance work, and I always hate it when A, you get paid a shit wage, and B, you either get paid on publish, or you get paid like half on acceptance, half on publish, and you write however much and you do however much work is done, and then you get like $40 now and $40 6 months later. It's not sustainable for an industry to be run like that. The people who make the content that you're selling and you are profiting from deserve to be paid a fair wage, and they deserve to be able to make money as well. And so I think when you're just collaborating with friends, it's fine to say, none of us are going to get paid for this. We're just going to do this for fun. We'll put it out. We'll split the profits. But when it's a project like this, where I'm saying, yeah, I want you to write something for this, and I'm going to put it on Kickstarter, and I'm going to ask for thousands of dollars, and forget the end of my sentence. I just think it's important to be upfront with people, because either they're your friends or they're your colleagues. Either way, they're your peers, and you should treat them the way you want to be treated. So one of my goals with this was to make sure that I paid people well, even if the project doesn't fund. I'd never, ever, ever want to ask people to write work on spec for me, because I've done it myself, where I've written things and then it's not been published for whatever reason, and I've not got paid, and it sucks. It feels crap when that happens to you. So everyone who is working on D36 is getting paid 10 pence a word, which is still less than I would like to pay, but it's all I could afford to pay at the moment. I think that works out about 13 cents a word, which in an industry where massive publishers are paying 3 or 4 cents a word, I think is a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to pay more, and we'll see what happens with the Kickstarter. If I make the money back and everything, I'll be giving everyone a pay rise, very much so. I don't think they know that. I might have just announced that now because it's not a stretch goal.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
And so, no, I mean, but I love that vision. Like, I'm the kind of person who, like, I'll approach an artist and I'll be like, hey, I watched it happen in an artist hub yesterday for RPG stuff, where somebody came in and was like, here's the project we're looking for. Here's how, like, no mention of budget, but like, here's what we need from you. Send us like 2 or 3 spec images. Then we'll go through and we'll decide which one of these artists we want. And then we'll work with them on budget. It's like, none of that is how this should work. Right. It's how a lot of entrepreneurs have been trained to approach it, because artists, unfortunately, will do it, and writers will do it because they need to eat. And, you know, but it's not a fair way to do it. Like, and I love you. Like, these are people who created something I can't. For Beards and Beyond, I wanted to work with Nick Nazzaro, who does phenomenal, like, minimalist board game illustrations. And, you know, he doesn't work on RPGs, but it doesn't matter as an artist. And I was just like, hey, like, how much would it cost to have you do like a page or 2 spread in my, you know, game? And he was like, well, what's your budget? And I was like, God, like, that's the best. That's the question you should be asking. And I hate that you did, because I'd much rather you just say it'd be $500, right? Then I can either say, oh, that works, or that doesn't. And his thing is, I want to work. Give me a number. And I was like typing in, I was like, all right, I'm going to say a number. And I was like, and I don't want it to be offensive. And if it is, just tell me the higher number. It's fine. And I was like, $252.36. He was like, that's very specific. I was like, I just, you know, like, it's whatever. Like, I'll pay you, you know, like, that's what I was thinking. He's like, yo, it'll take me half a day. That's about what I need to make for half a day. That's great. And so that was the end result of that negotiation, which ended up being a phenomenal collaboration. And, you know, it's really good, as opposed to like Jeff Stormer and Omari, who each kicked in a character, and it was 15 minutes. But if they had said, I need to get paid for that 15 minutes, I would have been like, great, what do you need? But it was really answering 4 questions. And, you know, most of the 15 minutes was reading the character creation process. So they didn't need to or want to get paid, and that's fine too. Like, that's great. Yeah. That's great also too. But if they had said, hey, I need to do this, I'm the kind of person who would rather not be able to work with somebody right now, but know how much I need to be able to come back and approach them. You know,
I've got a long list of projects that I've been wanting to do for years with specific artists, and I've spoken to the artists about them many times over the past few years, and I just can't afford them, and that's fine. It just means you don't get to do it yet. And one day I'll be able to afford it, and it'll be even more satisfying when I get to the point where I can do it. I wouldn't have been able to pay for issue 1 of D36 upfront if the Wretched Kickstarter hadn't gone as well as it did. So,
well, and it is gorgeous. Like, I'll go back over to it real quick. Not just like, you've got this, you know, this kind of stark cover image that's got this suggestive figure overlaid on what could be the spine of a book, what could be a blade, what could be a lot of things with this kind of sanguine blood surrounding. I love the immediate feel and vibes that it gives, but like the layout pages you've included in here are absolutely gorgeous. The things the meat says, like that spread is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the page, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And so I don't know if you do that. Did you have an artist come in and do that work, or who did
No,
that?
I'm doing all the layout on it. It's all public domain art, and I'm
Yeah,
just kind of bashing it all together. Um, the layout has really been dictated by the content as well. I had a cover that I'd mocked up when I was pitching people and saying, "Will you please write for this?" Didn't look anything like that. And then I think the first piece, maybe it wasn't the first piece I got back, but the first piece I did layout for was Oliver Darkshire's His Worship Who Sings in Vermilion Cloisters. And I sat down to do layout for it, and just really, you can't see the two. There's another spread for that, which isn't shown on the Kickstarter, that's really like grisly and visceral and exposed organs and things. And that's really driven the look for the rest of the zine. And then other work started coming back, like Things the Meat Says by Cat, and especially Sam's piece, which I can't remember the name of, the meat box, is really, really gnarly. And yeah, I realized that this was going to be effectively a body horror book for issue one,
yeah.
and I really leaned into that. And yeah, doing the layout has been a huge amount of fun, and it's been really nice to be able to look at something and actually say, "Oh yeah, this is good, and I made it," and not feel embarrassed about saying that, because it is really good, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. Lucas Rollum from down in Brazil, Guillermo Gogito, who does Public Domain Hunter. There's a couple other people out there, but looking at a lot of the layout work that you do and that other people do, that's in that bright, full color, like full page spread, complementary like capacity, it always is so super inspiring, especially for me, who's like my only artistic skill is composition. Like I can look at an image and be like, hey, this needs to go here, this needs to go here, here's what I would do with this instead, and give feedback. Like I have a decent eye and zero skills, like zero skills at all. But I'm always really satisfied when I see people who are out there doing layout, who are using a lot of images in creative ways that to just create this really immense presence. People always want to know what are some of the places that you look for when you're looking for public domain art.
Every single piece of public domain art in D36 issue 1 has come from Public Domain Review,
Okay.
which I think is literally publicdomainreview.org. I look through a lot of Wikimedia Commons, and I will often just Google a couple of keywords and the word public domain and see what comes up. I have like lists of artists whose work I really like as well, like for really kind of dark fantasy stuff. People like Dore, obvious choices, and all their works in the public domain. I did a Troika book a while ago that was all W. Heath Robinson art, because he's been one of my favorite artists since I was a kid, and so I literally just picked 6 pieces of his art that I liked and then wrote Troika backgrounds to fit. It can be really hard to find stuff in the public domain that fits exactly. Like if you have a very firm vision of what you want something to look like, it can be really hard to find pieces to fit. But if you just go looking and see what you find and then do the design off the back of that, I think you have, like I've done with D36, I think you have a lot more, you give yourself a lot more space to experiment and play.
I love it.
And yeah, doing this style of layout's been a lot of fun. I don't know how much longer it'll be in fashion. I think Merkborg really made it fashionable, and like Penicillin has been doing this kind of maximalist layout for a year or so now. And I think we're going to see the pendulum swing back to really stark minimalist layout within the next 6 months. So I'm just going to milk this trend for as long as possible, because I really like it.
Yeah, we that was like John and I, my collaborator for Repugnant right now, have almost oppositional like art preferences. Like I am a minimalist, iconic, like do as simple symbology as you can, and he is a crowded, build things in, like fill every square inch with something interesting. Like it's all interesting and beautiful and like
Mhm.
Like I love it, but it's just two very different design sensibilities, which is why it's always actually like super great to work with him and just kind of push on each other. But I'm somebody who, one of the things I love right now, where yeah, we're at this kind of equilibrium where it's like people are doing both, and I'm loving to see the simple things that people
Yeah.
are coming up with that are stark and minimalist, and at the other end, that super rich, crunchy, like every little bit filled and massively graphically represented pieces. So yeah, I'm digging this moment in time immensely.
I'm
So
enjoying it a lot. Issue 2 is, the theme I've given people is whispers, and I haven't had any work back for it yet. I have started asking people to write for it just because I think we're probably gonna fund issue 2. Um, I kind of want to do really minimalist, stark, lots of white space layout for issue 2, just to be a real counterpoint, like, to sit in next to issue 1 and go, "These are the same zine. They look completely different." We'll see what happens.
yeah. Oh, I love it. And like right now, one of the other projects that we're really excited about is Bats's Nerves, who's actually Bats is coming on tomorrow to talk about that project also too, because it is again, it's a project that like D36 is a collective anthology that was taking care of people and creating unique content. And then I didn't know about Nerves in advance, but Nerves as a saying, let's elevate the conversation around game design to art conversations, I think are
Yeah.
two incredibly important pieces. And so I'm actually super excited to have the two of y'all essentially back to back on that. But it's a totally minimalist
Yeah. Bats
presentation.
does such amazing layout, like, all their work just looks stunning. I've got Songbirds and Iron Lies on my shelf somewhere. Um, their work is just amazing. One of my favorite designers working right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Nerves is a really important project. Like, I think RPGs are really desperately in need of a critical apparatus that goes beyond just reviews.
Right.
I think Nerves is working towards that, and I really hope it funds because I think that really needs to exist.
Yeah. Well, even just watching, like, as we started doing the zine questing stuff this month, watching people respond not to, oh, someone's talking about my game, which a lot of, especially for small first time creators, is very exciting and is good. And we want to be doing, like, it's 100% why we do what we do. But the best part's been the community and these conversations, right? Like,
Yeah,
more in depth, deeper, not just I'm going to look at your Kickstarter page, give you some critical feedback, talk about what I like, and say if I'm backing the game. It's absolutely great for eyeballs and other stuff like that. But, um, yeah, what we need to do is start looking a little bit more critically at, there's this huge conversation on that started on Facebook from a video by a guy and then erupted across social media of like, what is a zine? Like three or 4 weeks
yeah,
ago, which, I was like, and I think I've said it almost every single time we've had one of these interviews. Like, I wanted to like cut an apple in half, stitch the corners together, and like, right, is this a zine on the middle of it? But I'm not artsy enough to actually pull that off. So like, just imagine that image. Because I understood what the individual was saying, like, why are you running a Zine Quest project? What is the essential like ethos that zines grow out of? But it was obviously focused in a certain, I want to keep things this way, as opposed to
yeah,
how is the conversation evolving given the tools and resources we have now. And there are tons of things that would fit in the classic definition of zine that would fly in the face of what he was proposing, but like Phil Reed has an accordion book piece coming out that's going to be this long
yeah.
folio that I desperately want to do something with that same exact format. I'm super excited that they're leading the way in that. There's just kind of some of these big things, and moving that to an art conversation, I think is going to be huge. Especially considering what you said about art always being a conversation. I think it's phenomenal. Let's talk about another pet project of yours, and then we'll let you get back to watching those dollars and pounds climb up on your Kickstarter. Let's talk about Dice Souls a little bit. I've moved
Sure.
over. I'm looking at the pre-sales page. I actually said right before we went live, like, I have pre-ordered this, not because I knew what it was and was like, I have to have this, but because I was like, oh, I know this creator and I know I'm going to want to get this, so I'm going to go ahead and grab it now with some of their other stuff that I've wanted for a bit, without having to worry. So tell us a little bit about Dice Souls.
Yeah, Dice Souls is so I run a Patreon and I put out a game a month every month. And the idea initially was to just do small games. And they keep getting away from me and getting turned into big games. And Dice Souls is the latest Patreon game that has turned into a big game. I have wanted to love Dark Souls and the Dark Souls series for years, and I've beat my face against them multiple times and just not being able to get into them. I love like roguelikes and I love dark fantasy, and I don't know what it is about Dark Souls. I've bounced off it time and time again. And then at the beginning of this year, I finally sat down and decided I was going to get good. And I finally had the experience of Dark Souls that I've been chasing for years, where I've actually enjoyed it. And I just immediately wanted to write a tabletop game that emulates that the gameplay loop of dying and retrying and things getting gradually better and better at things. And so I set out to write a game that does that without it being frustrating and boring. And I hope I've achieved that. The quick starts had a lot of good response, had good feedback. So we'll see. But I'm publishing it. Me and my limited editions. I'm publishing it in a limited edition print format, in a DVD case with a CD of the original soundtrack that I'm writing for it, as well as the 2 books that form the game, and that's going to be out end of February?
Cool.
Question mark.
I'm super excited about it. Like I'd seen it. I also used a piece of art that I love, and I love what you did with it on the, like just in the mock-ups on the CD cover, with that piece of art. Just I also just love the way you pulled all those pieces together. But again, like it was something that I was like, I saw you talking about Dark Souls, but I also I played Morkborg for the first time last month because Morkborg and Troika just took me too long to get to the table functionally, because I still haven't played Troika and I desperately need to. But the first time I played it, my initial thought was like, there should be speedrun RPGs, because the high lethality of this and the fact that this is a concrete dungeon means that you could easily put people back in and just run it again in kind of a roguelike capacity. And then the next week, a friend of John, one of my current collaborator, he put out that he had done a speedrun Hex Crawl game, which I'm super excited to check out. It's just on DriveThruRPG. I think we're going to stream it next month. And then I'm super excited to play Dice Souls and to kind of see that piece come up, because it is a piece of video game culture that seems to kind of fly in the face of old school RPGs, but I love the entire idea behind it. So if people haven't gotten to check out Dice Souls yet, I would encourage you to get it, because I did when I didn't even fully understand the project, and it's good.
Thank you.
Now I'm glad I ordered it. It was the same. I didn't want it to be like, oh man, pre-sales, I got to get this now. Limited edition.
Literally the only reason I'm doing a limited edition of it is because I'm doing all the fulfillment and manufacturing myself. So I figured 200 physical copies is about what I can stand to put discs in a box and put the insert in the box and put books in and then post them out. If I had a team of people doing it, then I wouldn't limit it, but I don't.
You've got that Dymo 4XL label printer. You're good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's fine.
We ran our e-commerce company out of our home for 3 years, and that was every week hundreds of packages and sometimes thousands. And it's not an enjoyable thing, and it's a lot. It's crippling when you're walking past it and I have to get that pile out.
Kickstarter fulfillment is always a mountain to climb, but it's worth it.
If anybody's out there watching and they have a question they want to ask Chris, go ahead and type it into the chat wherever you're watching. We should be able to see it as long as it's a public group if it's on Facebook, but anywhere else, Twitch, YouTube, it'll come right to me. Chris, tell us a little bit. I know that we talked to Anna last Sunday about the new collaborative you guys are forming. A number of y'all are forming around solo RPGs. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I can't remember whose idea that was, but that's myself, Anna Blackwell, Jack Harrison of Artifact fame, who's currently kickstarting Bucket of Bolts, which is
Kickstarter's not a competition. Kickstarter's not a Zine Quest isn't a competition, but
but he's winning.
He's winning again. It's too once you win once, it's easier to win again. So.
Yeah. The three of us and Matt Sanders. It's sort of got a focus on solo games, but because we all write solo games, but we all write other stuff as well. I think we're calling it the Rainy Day Games Collective. And it basically, I think it was Anna's idea. I can't remember whose idea it was. But basically, we realized that it's hard to get a foothold it's hard to grow your audience by doing things like conventions and getting books in shops and stuff when you're working on your own. And we're all in different parts of the UK, and so why don't we just combine and help each other out? So we're going to be doing when conventions come back in Meat Space. We're going to be hoping to hit up some UK conventions and try to just improve the situation for all four of us, and then maybe help lift UK indie as a scene in general. We'll see. We don't have any kind of fixed agenda or goals or anything
Yeah.
at the minute. It's still very early days, but it's been great working with them all so far. Like Matt and I are really good friends anyway, and Jack and Anna are both great, and they both do really amazing work. So it's really great to get to work with them.
Yeah.
We've got some really cool plans that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about, so I'm not going to mention them.
Oh, just
But
one of them. No,
we
just
have
kidding.
we have got some fun ideas. Matt comes up with very, very creative, inventive ideas, and I'm excited to see what will happen when we unleash him.
Yeah, we're gonna have Matt on in a couple of weeks, so I'm
Nice.
sure I'll be able to cajole him into telling me all the secrets. We want to be able to feature his project that he's about to launch. Just got to
Yeah.
prove. I
Have you
think
heard about the Beast
yeah.
and his new game that I forget the name of, but it's about filling in the spaces off the edge of the map. It's very cool.
Pickin' and Grinnin wants to know. Said they're interested in backing this. Do you have any sense of how much shipping to the U.S. might be?
I can, yeah,
I think it's on the Kickstarter. That is if you're talking about D36 and not about Dice Souls, because we did talk about both of those before that question came in. So Pickin' and Grinnin, we're going to look at D36 while we're picking that up. But if it was for Dice Souls, let us know because we'll figure that out.
Dice Souls will be slightly more expensive, but shipping to the US will be, I don't know how much it'll be in dollars, but it's about £4 or £5,
so
maybe less than
about
that.
6 or 7
Yeah,
bucks. Yeah,
maybe less. It's whatever it costs me to put it in an envelope and send it. I'm gonna, one of the things that's happened with Wretched is I didn't give anyone the option for tracked shipping, for ease, and this time I'm gonna do fulfillment through my website rather than back a kit. So if you want tracking, you'll be able to pay for it, and that obviously is more expensive. I think it's about 3 times as expensive to pay for tracking, but if you want it, you can have it. So yeah, somewhere between $5 and $15, depending on which shipping option you pick.
Awesome.
Thereabouts.
The other question about D36 is, are both the soft and hardcover going to be A5?
Yes, A5 landscape.
Yeah, which I love. I like it's a silly little thing, but I do love when people do the landscape move on a zine too. So.
Yeah, I love it. My shelves hate it, but I love it, so I win over my shelves.
You know what? The more people who do it, the less our shelves will hate it. Like, because there'll be
That's
enough
true.
of them, and
Yeah.
so that's the real trick. And so, and then Net Jogging wanted to know if you have talked to Chris McD.
Chris McDowell. I've spoken to him a little bit. I haven't talked to him about anything specific.
Just about UK, kind of raising the UK indie scene, is I think what that was.
All right, cool. Yeah, yeah, I know Chris. I think possibly maybe doing a podcast thing on his podcast when he restarts it. Maybe, I'm not sure. He lives quite near me, so he is one of the few people I've seen in person during lockdown because he came to pick some books up off me.
There you go. So if people, again, D36 is live on Kickstarter right now. The easiest way to find that, folks, is to go search it on Kickstarter. We will link it in the video for this if you're watching it later on, so that people can easily find that. Again, loottheroom.uk and Chris's Twitter handle are right below him if you want to find out about Dice Souls or the other work. Chris, anything else that you want to tell people about the project that you just really want to say, or do you want to tell people anything else about where they can find you? Oh, tell us what's your Patreon? How do they find you on Patreon?
Patreon is patreon.com/loot the room. It's nice and simple. I've got 2 tiers. $5 a month gets you a game a week early in PDF, and $15 gets you a game in print, signed and numbered. So Dice Souls is on sale for, I think, £20 for the physical edition, but patrons get it cheaper because they pay more for the cheaper games and less for the more expensive ones. It's a really good way to support me because it gives me like something approaching a steady income, which is hard to come by in this industry. So Yeah, sign up for my Patreon, please. It's great. I
Yeah,
like it.
we think crowd we back a bunch of people on Patreon. We're constantly growing the list of people. You are already on that list as we get bigger. Oh, hey, look, it's Keith Strom. Just stopped in. Who's a good friend of mine who used to work in the RPG industry and now just works with churches. And so, but a phenomenal community builder, excellent thinker. Just stopped in and absolutely loves this. Loves getting to hear about what you're doing. So,
Oh, thank you.
so. Awesome. Well, we're Plus One EXP. You can find us at plus1exp.com. Everything we do at Plus One EXP. Our prestige class is really just creators we love, who we'd love to sit down with and talk a little bit about what they do with Chris. That was not just solo RPGs and design, but also the way that he purchased collaborations across the board, which I think you can see through our conversation is a huge part of the work that Chris does. And so we are talking tomorrow to Bats, who is doing the Nerves project right now about elevating RPGs to a conversation that's more akin to art. We have a conversation on Thursday night with Laura, who is doing a trans rage anthology that's live on Zine Quest right now, and that conversation is going to be about Laura's design process, but also what does it mean to play a representative game for a group that you're not a part of, because that's a question I was asking, and that was encouraged by a bunch of different people to say, just reach out to the creator. So I reached out to the creator, and I'm excited to talk about Laura's design, but also about that piece as well. So if you're interested in that conversation, come back for that. And then Sarah and Dan from Planar Compass are going to be on Friday night. We also have an actual live stream over and over and over and over again for the next little bit. Actually, I think I just realized that I have a conflict on Thursday night that I have to go talk to Laura about. So that may actually be tomorrow night, but I'll keep everybody on a heads up to make sure that happens because it's a conversation we really want to have. I need better scheduling software. But with that said, Chris and I are just going to wave at the camera. Oh, wait, one more thing. $28, 28 days. If you want to know how to support a creator, one of the best ways right now is to go find a Zine Quest project. It's a small project that you like the look of, but don't necessarily know if you want to get the game on, and back that game for just $1 or £1, and then share it online. Anytime you do that, you help support that creator with $1, which is not an insignificant thing as much as a lot of people might feel it is. You help more people discover that on Kickstarter, people who are following you, or just help boost the algorithm to discover that project. Also, we share it on social media. Other people who might like that project find it also. So we're just encouraging people over the 28 days of February to go back 28 different small projects at any level. It's an awesome way to help small or first-time creators or big creators. I don't think Chris would mind if a bunch of people supported his campaign at $1. And so, but with that said, we're just going to wave at the camera until I take us off stream.